open the document.
All right.
Okay, good evening. This is the Thursday, March 22nd meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:06. I'm Mike Mitchell, and we'll start down on the right with our introductions of ourselves.
Bob Burns.
Patrick Sweeney.
Brian Burke.
Lynn Betteridge.
Don Smith.
Lisa Norman.
Marty Birch.
Denise Kaistaff.
Scott Archer, staff.
Okay, first on the agenda is approval of minutes. Everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any comments or corrections or revisions, additions, anything? Okay. Get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, approved of the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Like this first part of the agenda just goes. Citizen comments. There are no citizens present, so we'll just move right on past that. On to general business. And the first item on there is the dog park. And I've got just a couple of things to say, and then I'd like to hear from anybody else about it. We did meet Lisa, and Patrick and Scott and I met since our last meeting, and partly to kind of bring Lisa up to speed and partly to try to figure out where we go from here. And unfortunately, I think it's still pretty vague. The site thing, and maybe I'm getting my head of myself a little bit, and Lisa or Patrick or Scott, correct me if you think I am, but it sort of feels like that we have a couple of three possibilities, but our best possibilities are not park property, it appears. It sort of feels like, other than Glen Oak Park, which would be the next park that we would develop, and sort of start from square one and have a dog park master planned as a part of that park, to try to squeeze it into an existing park on a long-term basis doesn't seem all that desirable or possible. Am I leaping out ahead and getting my own spin on it?
No, I think
There.
that's fairly accurate. We did identify a couple locations, but the ones that are have the most potential aren't park property, and then the master plan, of course, would be for the Glen Oak Park would be the ideal location to plan it from the beginning and have it in the master plan. Kind of where I thought. We had some options we were going to check into, though.
Right. The one I was supposed to check on, I was not able to make contact. I tried a couple of times and couldn't get through with the individual with the county, and I don't know, you were going to...
Oh, with the softball field, and
Yeah.
that is used.
It is.
Yeah, in the summer. I did check on it. I ran it by our maintenance department, and they said, we still use that, and the softball team kind of takes care of it in the summertime or uses it for field use at the moment.
Okay. And I did see the other thing that you had mentioned, the school, the elementary school situation, but that sounds like that's still very
Yeah, we're
fluid.
going to have to wait until April, till the board makes a decision on what they're going to do with the schools.
Mhm.
Yeah, they'll decide April 26th or 27th.
Wow, they have to make... Well, that's true. It's coming up on the end of the year, so they have to decide pretty quick.
Yeah.
Scott, did you have any opportunity to reach out on that other...
Still working on that. It may take a little bit on that one, but I'm working on it. When I've got info, I'll let you know ASAP. Yeah.
We're referring.
Question?
Yes.
We're referring to the power line property as
Yes.
far as the availability.
Claremont.
Yes.
Claremont Way.
Claremont. Okay.
Is there a great need to expand our dog park facilities?
Well, what we're looking for is an off-leash dog park. When we're talking about a dog park, Bob, we're talking about an off-leash, a fenced, sizable enough area, where dogs can run without being on the leash. It's sort of, the present situation. I think there's a lot of people that say that the park in their neighborhood is already an off-leash dog park because people don't live up to the rule. And what we're sort of hoping to do is create a spot where that can be done legally, and maybe have people then not feel like they need to do that in their neighborhood park. because there is a definite facility. But the problem is, we don't have existing parks with a ton of free space, and to try to carve a big enough piece of property out with our weather, especially like, for instance, this week, if we try to do anything on too small a piece of property, it's just going to be a mud hole. And it'll
Are
be
people requesting the service, or is it just because we think they need, the
There's
service is needed?
quite a bit of
Okay.
desire, I would say, out there.
Yeah, there has been.
And I think, didn't that arise in the master plan when we originally did it? It was an issue that came up. That was a community need.
Mhm.
They identified as a community need.
Right. It was on the master. It was identified in surveys on the master plan, and then Bob, before you came on the committee, Scott has mentioned a couple of times that the number one phone call topic that he gets to his office is, where's the dog park? Why don't we have a dog park? When are we going to have a dog park? Those kind of things. So we do think that the need is there.
There's like the Facebook page alone is drawn over 100, 125 people that are leaving comments on it and totally for it. And
Well, I can see why people that don't have dogs would like to have a dog park so that they don't have to bother with dogs not on leashes.
that's part of our thinking, is that it would be a channel for those people that have dogs, so that it relieves the dogs that are in our regular parks, so we don't have an occurrence happen or a run-in where people don't want them around. So we're thinking of that too. That would serve as a relief for that need.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else on that topic? I think we'll just continue trying to reach out to those couple of spots that we haven't yet been able to work something out. And, with the idea that that Glen Oak Park, we realize that's a long ways out, but it is the top priority, and it is a big piece of property, and certainly could be laid out so that you could do an off-leash dog park and not have it cramp anything else in the park, and not be something that has to get, try to wedge it into an existing park. So, okay, we'll move on to goals update. Everybody see what Scott sent out? What comments, suggestions? Should we go through them just point by point? Now, they're not in any order necessarily. Don, you want to look over here? I don't think they're ranked in any kind of priority. They're just there. Let's just go through them real quick. First is identify funding for Phase 2 and complete development of Wesley Lynn. And you can see Scott's notes there. So I guess what we're doing now is sort of the tail end of Phase 1, or is this the concession stand and so forth? Is that Phase 2 and the undeveloped part is Phase 3, or I guess it doesn't matter really?
Yeah, sorry about that. I meant to send that. I thought that was going to be an attachment on your screens. Is it coming up?
Under other general business.
Oh,
It's under
Good.
general.
okay.
If they were-
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody had that to look at before we were.
That would be better.
Yeah, good.
Everybody found it. Okay, good. Sorry about
Under
that.
General business.
Sorry, Mike.
That's okay.
Under general business.
Yes, the
Scroll down the big bar.
we're kind of in part of what we're. To answer your question, we're really part of what we're doing with the concession and the restroom is part of what was considered to be Phase 2. There's some future phasing that I would almost call Phase 3, which is to program or design the undeveloped areas that we've got, going further towards Leland Road, and so it's a little bit undefined. There's not a perfectly clear answer to what you're asking me, but most of what was supposed to be Phase 2 was the building that we're building right now, which is really actually probably the biggest thing. Adding lighting to the softball, baseball fields was supposed to be part of that next phase. That's a really expensive undertaking if we can get to that. Plus, even though it's in the master plan, it's probably going to be contentious with the neighborhood. I think it's never when you light ball fields next to neighborhoods, it's always something that scares people, even though the new types of lighting on ball fields are really very high tech, and they have very little light pollution, is what it's called, where the light is so direct that it stays on the field and doesn't spray out all over the place. But also, there's the issue of if you're lighting the fields, then that means you're going to be playing later, like till maybe 11 o'clock or whatever. And those ball fields are backed right up to those backyards there at Wesley Lynn. So that one's something I'm not sure how we're going to deal with, or when we get to that point. So really, we're biting off a big part of that right now, and then it says right there that the remainder of the property needs to be master planned. So that's something that we need to look at some point. But we're going to be pretty occupied with some other planning things this coming year. So that master planning the rest of the park will probably be out there a little bit further.
Okay, determine future plans for the RV park. Any comments on that, Don? I know that's one of your
Nothing to
hot
report
buttons.
yet.
We're getting pretty close to putting out our RFP and then bringing in somebody to work with our staff and a representative or two from PRAC or whatever it's going to be to do a design process. So you're as the PRAC committee, you're just waiting on staff to get the RFP done. We're working through a bunch of other priorities and trying to get things done, and then that's pretty close. So.
Okay, seek funding per completed master plan for Chapin Park. Seek funding, is it?
Well, we touched, when we kind of ran through this list pretty quickly at the last meeting, I mentioned that we actually have an adopted master plan for doing some updates and improvements to Chapin Park. It's that master plan is probably 10 years old or more at this point. My comment there on the status is that's not currently in process in terms of doing anything about that next phasing. It's a pretty aggressive plan, and it would basically do a lot of things. Now there are a few minor things that have been done. The Oregon City Youth Sports, which is the baseball softball organization, on a volunteer basis built the concession stand there 2 years ago. That opened up. That was part of the next level of master planning. So that we've done that, and thanks to the contribution from the youth sports group. And the high school construction group right now is building dugouts, covered areas on the benches on the ball fields. They're doing that at Wesley Lynn as well, but they're doing that at Chapin, and that was part of it as well. But there's some pretty lofty plans, and we have so many other things that we're trying to address where basic park needs aren't being met in other parts of our city. That at least from my perspective, that is pretty low on the priority list right now. I mean that's going to take a while to get something done there, just because we've got other. You just mentioned Glen Oak Park, and there's other places that are waiting to be built at all. So I don't know what
Should that be on our goals this year then?
I don't think
No.
so. If you ask my advice,
It's
but
too far
that's-
down the list. It'll never hit the.
Well, it's already an existing park that, unless I'd rather see Glen Oak get taken care of before Chapin. So, me personally, Chapin's fine.
So we'll remove that one? Okay. Number 4, I just wondered there if we should separate that out and keep Glen Oak Road there, but it's two different processes, right? Glen Oak and Filbert Run.
Two different properties.
But two different master planning processes, or is it?
Well, kind of yes and no. We can actually get some scales of economy or some efficiency possibly if we when we hire a landscape architect to help us do the processes. We've discussed bringing one firm in to help us do both of those. Now we would treat them each individually because they're going to have their own needs, and the local neighborhoods are going to have their own ideas about what their neighborhood park will look like and what might be there. But we've talked about the idea of bringing it in and doing it as kind of one process with two individual properties that each have their own, personality. So we can list that as two different things on the list if you want. It's been kind of just listed like that because we're going to master plan both of them this year, whether it's one firm or not. It doesn't,
So that makes sense to keep them together. I hadn't thought about the scale, the economy situation. So, yeah, we'll leave that one. Any comments on that one?
No, I had a comment overall, though. We're knocking them off, just checking them off and deleting them from the list. Wondering if it might make sense to have what we're presently working on, the format of the page, 2012 goals there, but keep these other ones off as maybe a subset on the next page or whatever, with the idea that when 2013 happens, we're not just going to have a whole new set of goals. There'll be stuff that we might have been working on during the interim. So they're not so much out of sight, out of mind once we mark them off the list.
Good idea.
it's up to you. It's your.
So maybe have a longer-term goals
Like
section down at the bottom.
1 year, and then maybe we got a
Future.
2 and a 3 or something like that.
Okay. So then we'd move number 3, instead of eliminating it, we'd move down into that future goals or later years.
It's my suggestion anyway.
Yeah, I can put something like that together. Where
That sounds
put it
good.
that way. Mhm.
Okay, so we'll do that with number 3. We'll just move it down. Let's see, where were we? Number 5 we already talked about. Number 6, naming trail linkage standardized signing. That's ongoing, right? And I think you have more. There's something about trails coming up later on too, right?
We're going to talk about that in just a little bit.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Work with the city in the process for determining the use of the end of the Oregon Trail site, and we have, I'm forgetting who, but we do have someone that replaced Ted, or did we do that?
Patrick, did you? Was it?
I
End of the Oregon Trail?
thought Don and I were
We're
talking
done.
about that.
Yeah. Well, it's in the
was it.
it's in the minutes from last
Okay.
meeting. Whatever.
That's okay. That's okay. I knew we did it. I can't remember who. So that's okay. We're moving.
Don, is that correct? Was it you and I who said we would go investigate and check out, and we're very interested.
Okay.
in-
Pretty aware
That's-
of what I
that's
volunteered
exactly
for,
right.
and that sounds familiar.
It said in the minutes that you just approved, it says Don offered to be the representative,
That's
and Patrick
right.
offered to be the alternative.
Thank
or
you.
you
That
can
was a
work-
quick find there.
All right, thanks,
I do
Ron.
have
Okay.
one comment.
Yes.
Scott, thank you for sending that lengthy report.
Trail, you bet.
I know you emailed it, but by the time I got to page 3 on my computer, I said, I'm just not going to read all this stuff on my computer screen, so I appreciate you sending that.
No problem.
And I'm really impressed with the work that was done. Boy, I'm not sure what this cost, but probably pretty expensive. But there's a lot of quality information in here, and so that's my comment.
It's a
Good work. Oh, I was going to say one more thing. It looks like it's really expensive to come through on the recommendations that they make. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, it's an odd piece of property, I think, and the things that were built weren't necessarily built for a long-term life, unfortunately, and now the maintenance is going to come back and bite us.
Yep. We're that's at the forefront of our thinking. We're working on some ideas about that. I told you that I would keep you posted about any upcoming discussions, because what I said at the last meeting is that our commission had said in their goal-setting retreat meeting that they had at the beginning of the calendar year that they wanted to put that on a commission work session agenda this year and try to identify some strategies. I can let you know that it looks like it will be scheduled for the May 8th commission work session. So those of you that want to be involved or representing PRAC or anybody else that's interested in that, those are always open sessions. They meet right here. I think most of you know this, but the work session as opposed to the regular session is more informal. They take just a few subjects and they'll basically kind of discuss and work through them and try to get some brainstorming and figure out which direction to go on things versus taking any formal action. So that's what that will be. So it looks like that, if it's lining up the way it looks, it'll be May 8th. So you might kind of want to drop that on your calendars in pencil for the time being, and then I'll keep you posted as to
The exact time. Do you have the exact time, too?
it would be at, those are usually at either 5 or 5:30.
Okay.
Kind of depends on how much is on
here.
the agenda. Right
you said
here,
in
yeah.
here. Okay. And we don't have to pre-schedule to come in. We can just pop right in the door.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, anything else on that one? Number 8 might be another one that moves down onto our, whatever we call the later year thing, because of the city commission deferring this because of a number of other things that are on the financial plate. So I think, Scott, that's one that, if everybody agrees, that's another one that would move out. Nothing's going to happen this year on that.
Gotcha.
Number 9, we decided to remove, with Scott knowing that it is something that should a willing buyer come along, or a willing community group or whatever, that we would certainly entertain other ideas for those parks, but we didn't feel it was going to work to reach out and spend a lot of time on that. And then number 10 is supporting the Singer Falls project, which is Rotary.
Right.
Okay, so we're not actively involved in that. We're just supporting what they're doing. So, any additions to the goals? Anything we're not thinking about that we want to get, even get on that future year list, so that it just starts getting on the radar? See the wheels turning, Don, but nothing's.
They're square wheels.
Well, what I'll do, just so you know, is I'll take this information, clean up, make a final list without all these status kind of editorial comments, and just make it a clean list with the changes that you just made, and I'll bring it back to you at the next meeting, and you can kind of accept that as your final list. And again, keep in mind it says 2012. That this is kind of a rolling thing, so just to keep things at the forefront. And there's no perfect system here about how this works or anything, but it's just to generate that you've got some definite goals in mind of continuing to work towards. And some of them will probably happen this year. Some of them might carry over another year or whatever. But just keeping them rolling there.
I think, a part of that master planning for the other parks would be like a needs assessment. What does the city need? We know we need dog parks. Do we need more sports things, stuff like that? I think that would be good to know as part of that master planning. What are the needs park-wise, really, that out there? I mean, we all probably have opinions of what we think we need, but it'd be a good idea to, I don't know, do we need more sports stuff? Do we need more playground stuff? Do we need walking trails, all that kind of stuff?
One of the things I was going to suggest is take some of the stuff off the master plan and put it in that list.
That's exactly right.
Like an Excel spreadsheet, and just say this is what we got, and then just put little statuses by each one, and what it's going to take to proceed with it. The park, 3.2 million. Stuff like that, just so because I'm not going to be here.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think those are
one that's been on the board. So.
Those are perfect points, and that's going into that design process when we bring somebody on to help us do that, and then we start getting into the public forums that we'll have for that. Usually, what we'll do is you'll have the what you call charrette assessment or charretting meetings, where you come in with some kind of options and different things. You don't just draw a completely blank canvas. Otherwise, people might just come into those and kind of go, I don't know. You put up some options, and those are the types of things that we would do, is pull some of the priorities that we've heard from our master planning process out and try to see if they can be programmed into the park. And then you might have 4 or 5 different real rough design ideas, and then that starts kind of whittling down when you work through the process. But that's exactly right. Yeah, you pull out of the identify. We've already spent a considerable amount of time and money identifying priorities within the community, so we definitely need to use that master plan to do that. So.
Plus, it also lets most of the new people know what the city wants, or the citizens want.
Exactly.
It's hard for me to remember all that stuff.
I wanted to kind of speak to that. I went to 3 different meetings since our last meeting on trails and bikes and that kind of thing. And it became pretty obvious to me that there's so much material, like Bob said, in the plan, that we almost, I don't know, is it unprecedented to do a breakout from this meeting rather than to rediscover over and over at the public meeting what we're supposed to be working on or paying attention to. I mean, I almost feel like it's a college level class just to get literate or fluent on what's going on here. I attended those meetings and felt like a fly on the wall a lot of the time because there's so much going on that's been going on, and I'm sure Marty, for as long as you've been here, here comes that question again, and I wonder if there's a way we could. I'm okay. I mean, I work a full-time job. I'm busy too, but I would donate a full day even if I had to, just for a breakout or a workshop, just so we could get fluent on some of these things, so we become more effective. Because I kind of feel like we're just checking stuff off, and it's a little bit passive.
Yeah, it's up to the committee how you want to do that. I guess I look at it a couple different ways. You can spend as much or as little time, as a citizen advisory board volunteer that you want, and our job as staff is to support your needs like that as much as we're able to, in terms of getting you the information you want, educating you about things. Once a month for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it's tough too because I have to sort of think priorities and what can I get on the agenda and try to. There's probably 3 times as many things that I could put on each agenda, but we'd be here until midnight every meeting, and nobody wants to do that. So that's a great point and a great kind of a question about what you as a committee as a whole want to do. If you wanted to do, almost more like a retreat, that gets into kind of like what the city commission does every year. They spend an entire day, and it's on a Saturday in January every year. They commit to that, and that's their goal-setting retreat, and it becomes sort of a de facto training, even though there's 3 commission meetings or more a month at least. There's so much information, and it's when you start. If everybody's aware or not, but these meetings that I keep going to, Don keeps showing up to, so it's very impressive. And I mean that in a complimentary way, like you're getting involved and going as a citizen, kind of representative, or just out of your interest or whatever. But that's what we do all day long, while the rest of you are doing, whether it's work or whatever it is that you spend your time doing. So we try to bring that information to you the best we can. I'm just not sure, and also I have to balance that with I don't want to overwhelm or overload any of you to the point where you're like, I can't spend this much time, and I don't have the ability to do all that. So sometimes it's just the real high level stuff that we're working on, and there's definitely, you can keep going down those levels and get into a lot of different information. So you can do that individually. I'm happy to spend as much time as I can meeting. I'd be happy to meet with anybody whenever you'd be interested in doing that. Just spend an hour here, an hour there. If you have a specific topic you want to talk about, we could sit down and really go through that. Or as a whole committee, that's kind of up to you all to figure that out, what you want to do. So I'm here to help accommodate your wishes as best I can, knowing that also we're doing a lot of other stuff all day, every day on, kind of running the whole operation and doing all the different things that we're doing and so forth. So that's
Everybody's got a copy of the master plan. It's a really good, spend some time reading it, because there's tons of information. When we went through that, there was a lot of eye-opening information that needs to, that the city's doing, but yeah, I recommend reading it. Make sure you know it, because there's a lot of wonderful things that came out of that. It's time-consuming.
Can we get copies of that?
Yeah, I'll get you that. If you don't have that, I'll give you a copy of that. In fact, don't leave tonight until I give you that copy.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of extra.
That's a great idea.
It is.
Yeah, I do agree.
Tremendous amount.
It would be a nice thing, just, go for whatever, pizza or something, and sit down and talk, because there's so much stuff that's happened, like phase ones of a lot of things that have happened throughout the city. There's still more stuff going on, and I know I can't remember it all until somebody brings something up, and then I go, oh, wait, we got to finish this here, we got to finish that, and I know Scott's the same way, because he's got 3 times the amount on his mind that I do. So it'd be nice to get caught up on all of it. It took me a year to figure it out.
Well, I'm now at a year. I say I'm now at a year, and I'm not sure that I've figured anything out yet. You know, working on it. But going to that meeting was a humbling and a pretty eye-opening experience. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of wheels turning. I'm pretty proud to live here, got to tell you that. A couple of meetings I went to, came home and was just pumped. I think this map is a pretty good representation of that. But yeah, I would like to figure out a way that we could become more effective, and that's really my point.
Well, and also, just, and I really appreciate your interest level and that you want to find so much out and get, active or be involved in those different things. A big part of your role as being on the advisory committee is to represent the wide variety of different interests in the community for parks and recreation and whatever that might be. If you have specific interests, and Don, you're not shy about saying so I appreciate that. You've been outspoken and that's what you're supposed to do. So that's just what I would encourage you to do as a committee member, is if you have something of particular interest that you see as a need or an unmet thing in the community, or something that just kind of you think is out there that we need to be paying attention to, or whatever. That's what a big part of your role is to say that and bring that information forward, and we talk about it here, but also make sure that as staff we're either aware of it, or maybe sometimes we're not aware of some of the wants that you might be hearing from being in different things or what have you. So I wouldn't, at the same time, I'd encourage you not to feel like you're not caught up or up to speed or something like that. I think it's just there's just so many things that you can get involved with that it's probably it's almost too much unless you're doing it as a full-time career like what Denise and I do. And even then, we don't make it to every one of those meetings. I missed the last bicycle tourism meeting, and I think, is that what you were talking about that you were at recently? The bicycle
The sandwiches were excellent.
We're going to those types of things all the time, whether it's regional trails meetings or local things in our community and all these different types of things, and trying to keep to make sure that Oregon City is being represented at the table with different things that are going on, or that we're bringing those things forward that we see that need to be brought forward. But the opposite side of that is you also, as citizen advocates, bringing things forward that you think we need to be paying attention to. So anyway, I don't know if that is helping or making it more complicated. I guess I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
No, I think that helps. I mean, it's my basic premise, and we'll get back onto the time, was that is it unprecedented for us to do a breakout and maybe digest, dive into some of this stuff. It sounds like we can, so that's great.
Yeah. I'm willing to accommodate that if that's what the desire of the board is. If not, then so be it too. But whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but it does sometimes feel like we keep going an inch deep on a bunch of different things, and the difficult thing for me is to try to figure out how what we do and how what the Parks and Recreation Department does fits into what the county's doing, what Metro is doing, what the state is doing, and I know like for instance this Willamette Trail Water Trail partnership that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That's one of those things that so how do we make sure we're not either A, going off in the wrong direction, or B, not getting in the boat when we should be, because there's a boat that we could get into and get what we want. So I don't know how we make that happen, but I think it needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So
well, and that's part of it is a lot of that is the responsibility of the staff to make sure that we're keeping an eye on those things and bringing those things forward as they need to be brought forward, so that we're keeping you in the loop. But like I said too, if it seems sometimes it may there may be things. Well, you hear me probably rambling on at meetings a lot because I'm trying to throw so much information at you, because I know it's like, what do I tell them and what do I not tell them? I don't want to overload them and make the meetings go for 3 hours, because I know we're always watching the clock and saying let's try to be respectful of everybody's time, which I can very much appreciate. But at the same time, then I think about, if I don't tell them about this, then if somebody comes back and says, what the heck, you didn't bring this forward and we really should have known about that, I'm grappling with that every time I'm looking at agendas and what do I send out. Also, I try to send out those little informational emails once in a while to you that will just be, hey, heads up, here's something that's going on. And you can do whatever you want with those informational pieces that I send out. You can follow up and ask me more questions. There might be something that pertains to attending a meeting or a forum or a workshop that's going on, or it just might just be just know about this so that if it pops up at some point, you're not surprised and we can be somewhat informed about it. So, and again, if there are specific items that you want to know more about or delve into more deeply, I'm always happy to sit down individually or with a few of you or as many of you, whatever. So.
Okay. Brian, welcome.
Are we on Dog Park?
We're past it. We're past that. We're on.
Sorry I was late.
That's all right. We're glad you're here. We are on to item C, Willamette River Trail Memorandum of Understanding. Man, that's a mouthful. There's a lot of syllables there. So, Scott, I assume that's you?
Yes, it is. Just a second here. So this really actually is that was a great segue about things, kind of the things like this that are going on that you should be aware of and bringing forward as you need to be, things that we're involved with that you may or may not even know that as staff that we've been kind of going to some meetings, and when the time comes to bring something forward for you to know about and potentially support or help us promote or just whatever the case may be, this is a perfect example of that. This effort has actually been underway for quite a while, but it's been our ability. I'm going to back up. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of talking a little bit bigger picture here for just a second too, just to give you a scope of some things. There are things like this that we would love to have more staff time to spend going to meetings. Denise and I have twice as many meetings probably that we would like to be at that we're able to be at because of our ability to find time to spend a little bit of time at the desk doing all the things we need to do and being at all the meetings that we go to. This is kind of a good example of that. Is I've been at a few of these meetings, but not nearly as many as I'd like to. But what this is a collaborative effort that's been going on sort of regionally for a few years, but the last couple of years it's really started to kind of ramp up and catch some momentum. And most recently, what's going on is that we're being asked to be one of the partners to sign on to this agreement, or it's really just a memorandum of understanding. It's not even really a full agreement. It doesn't carry as much legal weight as a regular agreement or contract would. But basically what it is that the Willamette River Trail is through the whole stretch of the Willamette River, basically all the way down, south to the Eugene area and all the way up here through the Portland area and all points in between, is this concept of having a water trail, which if you're not familiar with that concept, just real generally, that's sort of like if you had a bike trail and you could give somebody a map or show them directions on, if you want to go from point A to point B or A to B and C over a few days or whatever the case may be, and what are the potential, the lengths of the stretch that you'd be going, what types of amenities and facilities are available along the way. So you're talking about that from the perspective of being on water, and mostly that's canoeing and kayaking and basically kind of paddling types of things for a water trail, not necessarily for motorized boating or whatever, more for the recreational and exercise type of a thing. So this partnership, this idea has been developed, and it's really starting to actually come together in more of a formal fashion now. There's some mapping developed. I could point you to a website. It's actually being State Parks and Recreation has really been the lead agency on this. It's tried to bring the entities together. So anybody that has public space on the waterfront along the Willamette River, any entity, whether it's a city, a county, a park district, a state parks agency, what have you, it has been asked to sit at the table or to be involved in this. And I've been to a handful of these meetings over a couple of years, but like I said, probably not nearly as many as I'd like to. I won't explain the entire agreement, and that's available to you to read. I sent it to you in your email. But we, like I said, where we're at now, the particular timing of this is that I believe 4 agencies have signed on so far out of probably a couple dozen potential agencies that could be the partners at the end of this thing. There's no specific timing other than just signing on sort of shows your partnership. Now, what we've got basically is our facilities along the Willamette River frontage, mostly Clackamas and Johnstorm Park, and then actually kind of up into the Clackamas River a little bit there, obviously, and maybe potentially into the future with some of the use of the Clackamas Cove and some things like that where there's some opportunities. And what you do is you're part of the water trail. You identify things like the restrooms and put in and take out spots, and it kind of encourages people to utilize your facilities. We don't have greatly developed boating facilities other than our motorized boat launches that we've got, but we do have some places where people could access, and so we're and as public agencies that own waterfront property, we're being invited and asked to be part of this partnership. So that's kind of that's a long story short. There's a lot more to it, and again, that's why I say it was a segue to what you were saying, Don. Is probably, if you wanted to delve into this, we could have somebody being a full-time representative to this and making sure that somebody's sitting at every single meeting if that's what we wanted to do. But the reality is there's probably not always time to do that. So we're being asked to be a partner. I'm supportive of saying that we want to be a partner. I wanted to first bring this to the Parks Committee before it goes to the City Commission. That would be the next step, is to go to the City Commission and simply just ask them to be supportive and allow us to sign on to this partnership. If you read the language in this, that's why I said it's as a memorandum of understanding. This is very non-binding. This is not really much of a legal agreement. It's just more of hey, we're pledging to be a partner and we want to be supportive. And there's more things that will come over time as this develops out further. But for the time being, it's just sort of mostly saying we can sign on to the dotted line. There's a separate signature page that I didn't include in this because it just has a signature line, and it just says we pledge that we want to be a partner and we want to do our best to support this effort. Whatever that exactly means is sort of loosely defined and will become defined. And if there are specific things that are going to be taken further, then that would be another agreement at a future date. So it's kind of like a real first level type of thing. So what I'm asking is for you to consider giving your support as a board. You could do that tonight, or if you want to take more time to understand this and read it between now and the next meeting, now that you know what I'm asking, you could put it off a month or whatever you wish to do. So
I move that we support it.
I second.
And I'd volunteer to go to any meeting you don't have time to go to.
And I'll back you up if you can.
I'll be
This is another hot button for me.
Me too.
And so what? Mark, comment?
Add, are we looking at, when we do the RV park, of adding some tent spaces and stuff like that?
that's something we've got to kind of figure
We
out.
talked about this
We
a
have.
year and a half, 2 years ago or more.
Absolutely, that's what I'm thinking.
That's something that we have to figure out. Yeah, exactly. And that things like that could tie into this, because you could invite people to utilize those types of facilities that are paddling the river and whatnot.
I have a question. Who's has the overall responsibility? Is it the state parks, whatever they call them, State of
Yeah.
Oregon Parks Department?
Exactly. Yeah. Right now they're the lead.
In the league?
They're the lead agency on this simply because they're the one. Nobody else was willing to take the entire lead, but eventually, if enough partner agencies get signed on to this, it may evolve a little differently. But right now, it is the State Parks and Recreation Department that's the lead agency on this effort. And there is, like I said, if you wanted to learn a little bit more about this, just go on and Google the Willamette River Water Trail, and you'll find links to the websites that already exist and show some water trail maps and some things of that nature. So,
Are most entities that are border the river, are they participating, or is anybody not participating?
well, yeah, it's pretty limited so far. I think people are just starting to get signed on to this. I think I said I believe there are 4 agencies that are actually signed on officially. There are a number of agencies that have been participating in going to meetings and things of that nature that I think will sign on, but not really that many have signed on just yet, because I think it's just something that's still pretty new in terms of the city of West Lynn has signed on. So
Didn't I see this goes back to Governor Kulingoski's day? It's like 10 years old now. This
it's been
agenda?
evolving since then.
Then-
Yeah,
okay.
right.
So, some more clarifying questions. The National Park Service is connected, yes?
I think there's some mention in there. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure what that connection exactly is.
Or how much?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 4 or so groups that are affiliated, how much they said, I guess with meandering of the river, it's like over 200 miles of river.
I believe it's
Wow.
around there, yeah.
It's amazing. How much do the 4 people kind of participate in that stretch? Is it, or the 4 entities, the 4?
So far, not really that much. Again, it's what it is that even though, Bob, you just made the comment that it goes back quite a few years, maybe 10 or more years, that it's been kind of evolving, but that's kind of the way things happen is, the idea gets hatched and then, it kind of
Grows.
figure out how to grow and become more formal. So it just fairly recently has become into this more formal state where people are going to actually sign on as a partnership thing. So, Patrick, not that much yet.
Yeah.
It's going to evolve. I know that in some emails that I get from this group that is kind of trying to meet on a regular basis and so forth, the city of Portland, one of their staff people that have been keeping their involvement in this has just given the Portland City Council a presentation about this fairly recently, a major presentation that was, here's what this is, and because Portland probably is, I would say, is the biggest entity in this whole thing. It seems with their waterfront, obviously on the Willamette. So, assuming that they would sign on, they'd be one of the bigger partners. And I think as people more sign on, then it'll start to get momentum, and then it'll start to be more defined. Because you read the language in this, and it's sort of clear, but it's sort of kind of loosey-goosey. And it's just the idea is, hey, let's just get people kind of signing on to the idea. It's already been sort of developed, but now we need the actual landowners to sign on and be more committed to participate.
I have a really, really basic question that shows my lack of information, but somebody coming in a canoe or a kayak from Eugene, how do they get past the falls? Have they been using the locks, or is it safe on the east bank? Is there enough river
Jump on
to
99
pass
and
carefully and not get sucked into the falls?
No, you'd have to go around. You'd have to have
around.
You'd have to have a plan
Okay.
to go around that. And
Seems really an important, a really, really important part of this trail.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things
What happens
that are
in the
identified.
city?
Is if you're going from Shampooey to Portland, even maybe not even all. You wouldn't necessarily go the whole couple hundred miles, but if you did a 30-mile stretch or something, and you had the water trail map, and then once I get to the falls, what do? I take out probably at Willamette Park over across the river, and what's the best way to get around? What's if I have a
Put on your
kayak or something, how do I? What is there? Public transportation? Are there shuttle services? And what's the best way to do this? And
Wow.
those are the kind of things that get identified in this type of thing. So.
Things just kind of things come around full circle, because Kanema was a hot spot on the river. All the river traffic, all the crops coming down the river, either had to portage around and be put on another ship below the falls back in the day. And that was the whole means, the whole reason for the community of Kanema was supporting people trying to get around that falls.
That's exactly.
So, what other questions, comments? Okay, so we have
Just real quick, there is a lot of conversation about what happens with the locks, and the question that was just brought up, which is a really good one, is one of those questions that keeps coming up, because there's an don't know whether it's a federal law or there's a right that if it's a navigable river, you should be able to get down the river. So, and there's also ideas out there, I know you've heard a few of them, about what to do with that area, and everything from a whitewater park to, making it actually navigable again for paddle sports is something that's being circulated. So it's a good question, and it is. There's a big, about a mile and a half stretch that you would have to get TriMet to put kayak racks on the front of the bus or something,
Yeah, and of course, it's a battle every year to keep the locks open, and it's going through another time right now where it's basically being closed. And and Kate, just as a kind of an FYI, I know a little side topic here, but the locks are operated and managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a federal agency.
Okay.
So it's up to federal decision making and federal funding to support keeping those locks open, unless some local agencies wanted to pitch in a lot of money to help that. It's a fairly expensive undertaking to keep those operating, but that's been an ongoing battle for several years now, unfortunately.
Are the locks open to the public for
Little
Not right now.
Personal craft like that.
yeah?
I
Get a flotilla of
think
They're
so.
not open at
10
all.
kayakers.
Well, right
who
now
wanna-
they're not, but when they're open, I don't think.
It used to be.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know if you can run a kayak through there or not. I don't know.
In the past, I have seen paddle
Have
a group go through the locks. I don't know
I
how they
suppose
got.
maybe you'd have to make an arrangement in advance or something. But I don't know.
It's kind of intimidating if you've ever been in there in a boat.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's especially intimidating how much water is coming through that gate.
It's
It
quite
really
amazing.
isn't supposed to.
Yeah. Those are old locks. Those have been around for a long time.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for PRAC to express to the City Commission our support of joining the Memorandum of Understanding for the Willamette Water Trail Partnership. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll keep you posted as that moves forward in the process where the commission would hear this and then approve it, hopefully. So.
Okay. Trails plan refinement.
That's going to be me.
Okay.
So we have, last year, hired Alta Planning and Design to do a refinement on our existing trails plan. And knowing that things have occurred since the time the last map was produced and some of our goals and some of the areas that we knew needed some refinement, we've made some progress. We had a little bit of stop and go in this project, being that it seemed like it would be a short, low-hanging fruit project, but based on priorities of projects, I had to kind of stop and start with them. And so we're on a roll again. We have 3 key segments that we're looking at trying to obtain within this project scope, which has melded from the time that we started based on the fact that there are some projects that Public Works was producing that actually added to the trails plan that took some things off of our plate. So we're looking at the map that's in front of you has some of the refinements and additions of what we felt were some connectivities that already existed but weren't mapped. So we added those in. Some of them are like really short segments onto an area that was existing, and we just made the connections that were already there. So it's kind of hard to detail out what we actually added in here because there's probably 20 little segments in here that we added in that were already existing connections. What we're looking at ultimately is identifying 2 gap area analyses, and that would be for that Chapin Park to King Elementary and Kenema to McLaughlin Promenade. And we picked those areas because we think that those would be ones that we could produce enough design plans to acquire some grant funding because they're the safe walk to school or I don't know what they call that now. It used to be the
School routes. Safe
school routes or
Safe routes to school.
So safe routes. We've also looked at the multimodal piece of the promenade coming into Kenema, and we already have a really long length of trail that exists and has been improved upon. Signage on the promenade that we put in just about a year and a half ago now.
Not even that long.
About a year?
Less ago, yeah.
Plus everything that was produced through the 99 Boulevard improvement. So all of that plays into us wanting to kind of continue that on. And so we've looked at doing that gap analysis there, where there's kind of some goat trails that lead up back into that Kenema area. And we think that we can probably find some identified areas that we could possibly, that are either publicly owned and get an MOU, that are maybe privately owned, and that in the future, if they're for sale, potentially we could acquire an easement. So having those plans ready makes that project almost a shovel-ready project, that we can say, we've got plans, we've identified all the key pieces that we need, we just need funding. And when those funding mechanisms come out in the forms of grants, that we can say, here's our plan, put the grant together, and we're shovel-ready. So that's why we kind of chose those two areas. The other thing that we are looking at is towards the cove, kind of the Willamette River area, leading into where we started the signage projects to the promenade. We're looking at doing a signage detail for that area. Those trails exist, but are probably missed quite often because they're not signed, there's no wayfinding. So we're looking at doing that in coordination with the greater plan of the Metro Regional Trails projects. And so we're already looped into the Metro Regional Trails Plan projects. And so just by defining our areas a little bit and making them more noticeable, we'll get more use out of them. And then the final piece of this project is producing actual maps. So we're looking at producing something that you can tangibly take with you and go, oh my gosh, I never knew that was a trail there. Or you can get from here to there. And part of that is signage, and part of that is getting that piece of information out there. So it's been a slow process, but we've made a lot bigger steps than we had anticipated based on just coordinated efforts and or efforts we weren't necessarily aware were coming down the pike when we started the project, that have developed into some larger segments being finished. So even though there's small steps, we're really kind of trying to take, some bigger steps.
And what, probably for some of you that are newer, especially, and maybe a reminder for some of you that aren't newer, what we're talking about is based on, we have a City of Oregon City adopted trails plan. I believe that goes back to 2004, and that is available for anybody that would be interested in having that. It's online on our website, or again, we can produce copies, hard copies, for anybody that would want that. So this is based on the adopted trails plan that had gone through significant, again, public process and a lot of time involvement and use of consultants to help us do the work, and then being formally adopted through usually most of our master plans go through the adoption through the Planning Commission and then also the City Commission. So that's already been done. So we're talking about extracting portions of that and doing some things, and that's a little bit further background, but that's for some of you that weren't aware that we had an adopted master plan.
And there's one edit in this little box over here. It says Singer Creek Park, but if you notice the sign, it's Kenema. So we are making some edits to that. This is the draft.
Something I've missed.
Denise, could you tell me again the names of the two segments? One was a
Two
King-
gap analysis areas are going to be Chapin Park to King Elementary, and then Kenema to McLaughlin Promenade.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
It'll still be some type of an open space. There's the fields and it's also connections to neighborhoods. That's sort of maybe just a landmark thing to do. But I know what you're saying.
might be calling that something else in the future, but yeah. and it's still an area of need for access. There's some sidewalks through there, but it's on a highly trafficy area, and so we're looking for, we do have some areas that follow the sidewalks because there's a lot of sidewalks in our city. Those will connect up, if you know where to go, to these offbeat trails or park trails or established trails. So what we wanted to do is find things that the gap analysis finds that we're either not getting a connectivity to, or, if it was still a school, making those safe routes. So it not being a school, maybe potentially in the future, it may be something else that would still benefit from that connectivity.
It might be a couple things that come to my mind as far as one of the things we could get more bang for our buck, or what we should be really trying to steer, all of us should be steering towards, is drawing attendance to our parks, to our beautiful spaces. And that it does seem that things are removed. We're doing our best with, some signage, in the front, and it just seems like there's some more innovative things we could dig for, like online promotions.
This map that we're talking about of production isn't necessarily a tangible map. That will be one piece of it.
Right.
But because everything's so electronic now,
Yes.
we have the map will be then on our OC Maps application. It can go onto the web pages.
Right.
It can go on our Facebook.
Yeah.
And our Twitter pages. It can cross over to, some of our other departments or divisions, and they'll put it on their Facebooks. Social media, that's the electronic version is going to be much more widespread than, say, the paper map.
That's what people are using now when they go out to hikes. They pull their little computers out of their pocket, and they have an app for trails. They have access to social media galore, and it just seems like that's an untapped thing that we definitely could be pushing these hidden parks, like Waterboard Park. So many people I know in the neighborhood have no idea it's there. And another idea is, too, crosswalks. That gets into city planning, but more crosswalks around these places will be more, there'll be more of an invitation for the neighborhoods to get out and participate in these places.
I think that's part of how the stakeholders meeting and that technical advisors portion of the transportation, the TSP, and that's coming up.
Are you the representative?
Yeah, I was just going to speak to that.
All
It's
right,
it's in motion.
Perfect segue, yeah.
We had a meeting right here in this room. This will be my report. In this room, and they had maps, and they asked for input, and people put Post-its on a huge map laying out on a flat, and then at the last meeting we went to, they actually displayed a website that they have of the city transportation network where you can actually post if you have a problem or you think there should be something done here or whatever.
Really? And
it's really cool. It's very interactive, and I could see that being a really good thing to template off of, or template to, with this map right here. I think this map has much more on it than I saw at any of the meetings that I went to.
A lot of this is proposed and existing, so the color delineations and then the hash marked ones are the proposed, and those are the future big picture items, things and the goals that we would be looking at in the long term, trying to achieve. So the areas that we're doing the gap analysis are ones that we're just trying to expand upon, and that we know that there's grant funds out there that we can achieve having a shovel-ready product. So, we're kind of taking chips out of it yet. Metro Regional Trails is looking at a bigger scope of trail dollars, and they're looking for a big bucket of money. And there's been a huge culmination of agencies working with the Metro Regional Trails program. They call it, what are they calling it now? They rebranded it.
You're talking about Intertwine?
Intertwine.
Yeah.
They're calling it Intertwine, and so there's a lot more marketing, a lot more push, a lot more. There's the Blue Ribbon Committee and all these So there's a lot of plays going on behind the scenes that we're working with them. Those types of big bucket dollars have a tendency to take a long time to gain momentum. But it's been 4 years? 5? Maybe 5 years that we've been going to these meetings. And it seems like there's a lot more steam behind it, a lot more stakeholders, and a lot more information out there, and they're doing a lot of media. So, you know, when there's that much momentum going, you really hope that you'll find a bucket of dollars at the end of the trail.
Literally.
I think that, you know, in this economic times, it's still going to be tough to grab those dollars because you're still looking at federal funds or things like that that produce these big bucket dollars. And I think that it's still going to take more time than the very, very near future to grab that bucket. So, you know, even though that's something that may take some time, there's still going to be a lot of push for it and keep that momentum flowing. So when there is dollars, hopefully that has been in somebody's forefront long enough to advocate very hard for us. So, you know, we're not going to give up that fight. It's just for some of our bigger projects, we're really hoping that those big buckets come along. Right now we're looking at little buckets and trying to grab from those little buckets with, you know, the melee of other people. But we're really hoping to have some products that are shovel ready because those are the ones that tend to get the dollars. And so we're going to try and throw a few of them that are shovel ready out there and see if we can't capture those.
When I went to the one meeting, it was pretty cool. Mia Burke spoke, who's the Alta design, and she was pretty influential in getting Portland on the map internationally, I think, for cycling. Mm-hmm. And if you read the book, she actually had a book and autographed it and passed it out, and I got a copy of it. But it was pretty ambitious when she started. I mean, no one really wanted to listen to this idea of Portland being a bicycle mecca.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say that I wouldn't live here if it wasn't. It was part of the reason that we moved here, and a lot of industry has moved here. So I applaud you for the work you're doing, and it is that one of those meetings that I went to that I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much more going on than I would have ever imagined. But it took Mia's effort and all of them to really pencil out what would we do when the opportunity comes. And it was simple as calling a guy on a Saturday that was laying asphalt and saying, hey, look, can we get a bike lane in there? And, you know, that kind of networking that kept that plan moving forward. So that the plan's in place, and when the opportunity arises, then it's a lot easier to get that to happen.
Yeah, it really is needed. You know, think of what a park space is for. It's for the neighborhood in that given area to get out and get on their feet and get into it. It's almost like it's not supported because we don't have the crosswalks, not a lot here in Oregon City, that really draw the people out to then go walk in their neighborhoods and access the parks. So it seems like it's of vital importance to me, to the neighbors I've been speaking of, for these connected crosswalks, to pull the neighborhoods together and to give them access to the parks. I can't speak of specific places, but I just know that plus signage is going to really equate to many people getting out.
And you can go on that website and click where you think a crosswalk should go,
Yeah.
and they're really receptive. All the way from ODOT on down, we're there.
Awesome.
And you can call them and talk to them.
Okay. Yeah, because I know there's neighborhood meetings that are kicking up and people really wanting more. So I don't know about other people in their neighborhoods, but...
Didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry. Just kind of want, before we finish up this conversation, I didn't want to lose the opportunity to talk about this. And again, Don, you made such a good point, you know, earlier about the stuff, all the different things that we have our hands on that are going on, and how do we know what's going on. So, you know, this is another example of that kind of thing, and it's a reminder to you. And I like to try to take those opportunities just to every so often remind you about that we're doing this thing, and then we may not talk about it for 4 months, but you know, we are part of something, and it ties into this. And Denise just said it a few minutes ago, the Intertwine Alliance. We talked about this previously with PRAC, but it's been a little while back now. But it's one of those things that it's part of what we do and part of our job. But just know that. So we're talking about some kind of more local things, and like the things you're talking about, Patrick, are getting into our local parks. But we're also we're also part of the regional effort to connect, not just within our own city, but to connect between communities, the pedestrian and biking routes and things like that. And it's a lot like this water trail thing that's more in its infancy. The Intertwine Alliance, which we are signed on as a partner, it's very much like this. We signed on a couple of years ago, and I remember bringing it to PrAC and saying, this is what we're doing, and this is kind of a no-brainer that we'd sign on to this, and we're at the table. I go to those meetings pretty regularly. But the Intertwine Alliance, and that's a great website resource to look at. Patrick, you were talking about the technology stuff.
Yeah.
They've got a very well-developed website with, if you're not sure where you want to go and you want to go around the Portland area, whether it's on a bike or on foot or whatever, you can go onto the Intertwine website and it'll give you some routes and some connections and some things like that. But we're, again, it's just a reminder that we are very much a part of that regional collective effort, and it's an actual formal alliance that we're signed on to, and we pay a small due as an agency to be in that alliance, and we represent ourselves at that, and there's a lot of benefits that come to that because they provide a kind of a regional thing that shows people where some of our park sites are at. Somebody that lives in Beaverton that might want to come over to the east side and do something, or out of town people coming in, and that whole being the biking mecca. This is another piece of that this regional collective effort has been going on for quite a long time. This is the Intertwine Alliance is a culmination of like 20 years worth of work of all these different committees that kept trying to do something, and it never quite, it would go here and there, and it finally kind of got pulled in the right direction. So anyway, just another opportunity to remind you about something that we're involved with.
I'm next, Don. I'm next.
Okay. Well, put me in the queue. I still want to answer his question a little more.
Brian.
Oh, okay. That was my point, too, Scott. I think we could still ask ourselves right now, so what's our part in it, right? I'll tell you what it is. We represent Oregon City. We are from the different neighborhoods of Oregon City, and we provide advice to the City Commission. So, as we have before, we have advised and we've talked about the centers of gravity that we see that are in Oregon City. One of them is right here, and so you look at the Master Trails Plan, or the Trails Master Plan. You look at this and you compare them, and you think, well, there's some competing priorities right now, and you can tell because there's some far out trails that are further out that may rank a little bit higher in priority that even some commission members like to talk about, that we think and we've agreed on previously that aren't as important as those that are right around here, around this building and around this area of the city. So I think what we've done in the past is advised staff that we think something like the trail to link Kanema with the promenade are things that we think are important, not just for our community. So we have to look at other things as well. Our community and really the taxpayers, they fund what we do. But we also need to think about it and from a financial impact, which is what you're getting at, and also a tourism, which is financial as well. So if you find these centers of gravity throughout Oregon City and you build outward so that you can have those multiplied effects, that's the thing that we can advise a commission and say, look, this is the way we think it should go. We've talked to staff. We agree with them on this. We may not agree with them on something else. But this is the way we think it should move forward, and then give reasons for thinking that way. But we can make some very, very, draw logical conclusions, give good information, pass that up, and then we could see something like this, have our input in it, and we can feel we have accomplished something. And I really do think we are accomplishing something in this respect. But we need to, every once in a while, stand back a ways and figure out, well, so what is it we're doing even right now? What are we doing right now? Are we making a decision right now, or are we just saying that looks good? But I'd like to think we are supporting, and I do support these close in, this center of gravity here. You've heard me talk about that before. I think it's very important, this part of Oregon City especially. Others would argue with me. That there's others that would, and there's other centers of gravity too. Arguably. So.
Can I just make a follow-up comment on that before we? Excellent point, and just so that PrAC knows what Brian just said, we some of these items are based on previous discussions with this committee, not necessarily all of you that are sitting here right now, but maybe over the last couple of years or whatever. So your input does lead to things like this as we start to develop plans. And I think you said something like, is this a decision point? When we bring things to you, we look for your input and feedback, and sometimes just your general kind of head nodding and knowing that you're supportive gives us a good sense that, we have to, there's a few check-in points that we have to do when we're doing things, and we have to be accountable to the public, we have to be accountable to our city commission and, who we work for directly, but this is a very important stop-in point with these projects, and that's why we always bring forward things like this to the committee. And whether or not you make any kind of a formal motion on something like this, we're providing you information at every meeting about different topics and projects, and just the fact that you're not in opposition to that is, in essence, that is a decision point for us, knowing that, okay, we feel that we've got your at least support, or at least not opposition to continuing forward down this path. So, that's why we say speak up if you've got issues and concerns about things. But yeah, that's a great point, Brian, and I just wanted to follow up on that by saying, in case you weren't aware, that's where we're coming from as the staff. Is we develop a lot of these things with feedback that we've either heard currently or previously from the committee, and we continue to try to get your kind of check off with you and say you're okay with this, right? And we're moving down this track, and you're very, very influential in that process, just by the fact that you're not saying no, we don't want to do this, and continuing down that path. And that gives us a great level of, we know that our citizens group is saying, okay, you're good with this, right? Yep. Okay, good. Then we feel good about that, and then we've got to move through, sometimes decisions with our commission or different things. And so I didn't want to lose what Brian just said there. I wanted to make sure that you also knew that that's where we're at when we bring things to you guys. So.
Don, you had something?
I wanted to just give you one last piece on trails really quickly. That pedestrian bridge, it's at the 82nd Avenue pedestrian bridge between Gladstone and Oregon City going into the Cove Trail. Mm-hmm. That is closed for the pipeline that they're putting in.
Sewer pipeline. However, they found some structural issues with the old wood beams that they had. So they're going to have to do some structural mitigation to get the equipment onto the bridge on the Gladstone side. So the project is still going forward. They're still doing things that they don't have to be on the bridge with heavy equipment. But they are going to be an extended closure to the end of May. And I think their media release is saying June 2012, but the projection is late May. They were supposed to be done at the end of this month originally. Yeah. So it's basically like
it's really, if you're, if anybody's used that bike path, it's hard from like the Hilltop area where I live to get anywhere north if that bridge is closed.
Yep.
Let alone 213, kind of hairy to figure out. But get past that, it's difficult to make your way around.
I know.
We did post on our website the detour routes, the signage notice, and on the sites there's really good signage for the detour routes, and I think they should have done it this week, put up the new deadline date. So just to make
just
sure.
a lot longer.
Don, you had something you wanted to
Just real quick, I think that we should revisit when we have time in another meeting your idea about getting people to parks. I have some ideas about that. I think it'd be cool to when I was trying to figure out the inventory itself. I thought, God, wouldn't it be cool to go out there and GPS every one of those spots and put the coordinates down, and then go to Google Earth and put a couple photos on them and start to get people to do that. And then I thought, well, why don't we create some kind of an event or something where we get people out to each one of those, and you collect a chit or whatever, so that we get more people aware of those. And then, if I could, I wanted to ask, what is this yellow trail with the red squares in it? What does a community connector really mean? What's it look like, or is it just a possibility, or?
Well, the community connector, there are some that are already in LEED.
with the red squares in it.
I'm not sure. Do you remember what their definition of that was? We have to look at these. Some of these definitions were from that 2004, which I was a part of. And each agency and the region uses some different definitions. But the community connectors are the ones that seem to inlie throughout the community and connect out to some of these bigger trails. And that's typical within a community to have these ones that come from in to out. But then you have your mainline regional or bike lanes that tend to run more on your arterials. But we're proposing, whenever new construction comes in, they'll lay in new bike lanes and things. And so then what we need to do in the TSP is make those gap analysis, again, from where the new stuff is, where the old is, and then it starts new again, and try and make those connections, and then target those as projects or work orders come up. And I know they've done a lot more work out in, what is that road, Wesley Lynn?
Frontier Parkway?
The main arterial.
Leland.
On Leland. So Leland, there's new crosswalks out there between Leland and Lynn. And then there's also, the bike lane starts just as you turn onto Frontier, going out towards the college. So it'd be nice to see them come inland a little bit more. So
The reason I ask is there's a whole bunch of them. The picture with the rock in it, you can actually see the roof of my house, and there's a bunch of paths around my house all of a sudden. And I just really wanted to know, are those 4-lane highways, or are they going to be bike paths? Or
this is proposed. It's a guideline, something we would project in the long-term future. We try not to say it's going to go right by your house, because there's a lot of pushback as soon as you put something near somebody's house. So these are what we call guidelines, areas where we feel there are gaps, and it may, the lines may move in.
It's not property specific.
Not
I think
property
bike paths are
specific.
welcome. I just trying to figure out what they had in mind for that. There's a whole lot of those yellow.
They're yet to be determined. These
I
are
see.
this is kind of pie in the sky areas of deficiency that we feel that we could potentially make some connectivities through.
And again, I'd refer you to the existing adopted trails plan if you wanted to get in and look at that at some point. It's really easy to find on our website.
The legend's a little hard to read, but the crosshatched is proposed.
Have my glasses.
Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Anything that is dashed or crosshatched is
Is proposed. Okay.
Anything solid line would be the blue, the yellow, and the green solid line. Those are existing.
Existing. Okay. And then is this map online somewhere where you can zoom in and look at
Not this
more
particular
detail?
one, because this is not a finished product.
Okay.
This is just a working product.
Okay.
So
How much, the intertwined site, how much, is there much Oregon City specific detail on that?
A little bit, not a
Not-
ton. And
not a bunch.
the intertwine is more based on the regional connection points, so it doesn't get into like the off the beaten path in our city stuff. So that's the stuff that's going to connect regionally. Mostly it's
Okay.
on our waterfront at this point.
And those are on the Metro website. You can go to the Metro Regional Trails, and they have maps. Ours is, I think, technically called the Oregon City Loop.
Do we have
Okay.
that electronically that we could send? That you can, do you want an electronic
Yes.
version of
Yes.
I would like an electronic version.
That's what you're asking. We could probably send that out to
Preferably-
it inelegantly, but that's what I was asking for.
Preferably under 50 megs too. So
I don't know how many it is, but yeah, I know.
there's one on the city. It's the computer freaks out.
And I think we've spent a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to say it is a treasure, and take it that we're really enjoying it
Oh,
and getting a lot of information.
This has been really good conversation, and it's very helpful to us, and it helps us kind of flesh some things out a little bit as well.
Right.
So thank you for that. It's just been really good conversation.
Who put this together?
Alta, actually, Larry and I did some boots on the ground work.
Yeah, that's-
Alta had done some boots on the ground work, and then just things that in our own heads we knew were there, we dropped it on the map.
It's wonderful work.
Alta is a planning company and a design company that did our trails plan, and now they're helping us do some of these pull-out pieces.
I'll be there.
And then the final point I want to leave you with is just for this whole conversation, it's really good conversation, and it's really important because going back to the Parks Master Plan and looking at the public input pieces, the number one priority in our city, and not just in our city, but in most cities, is trails. So that is really important to keep in mind when we're thinking about projects and prioritization, and maybe a little bit about kind of even what you were talking about there, Brian. But the problem is it's harder to find money for trails, but what we're trying to do is make connections that already exist and just show people that they're already there. If there's a roadway connection with a bike path, but people don't realize that that's a designated that's a real trail, but you have to make things visual to people and stuff. So we're trying to help promote that and pull some of those pieces along, because we try to build trail segments when we can. The new trail segment between Johnstorm and Clackamas, the Clackamas River Trail, the enhancements on the 99, the McLaughlin Boulevard stuff, but we don't get to actually build just dedicated trail segments very often. So what we're trying to do is make connections that already exist, because this is our trails, walking, biking, non-motorized use trails is the number one recreational priority as spoken by our citizens in the information we collected. But if you look at national information, it's across the board. It's trails. It's walking, biking, hiking. So, we got to keep that in mind a lot when we're looking at different priority things. And within parks, trails within parks, or trail plans that are dedicated, or whatever it may be. But that's just, and this has been obviously it's something of interest to a lot of you, because there's been a lot of discussion. I think that kind of just proves the point that there's a tremendous amount of interest in making trail connections. So.
Yes.
I got it. I'm sorry we're here, and I'm going to take up some time, but this is very fascinating to me. One of the things I found on the web researching this was an idea called a natural park or a nature park, in that it looked relatively inexpensive to do, at least in concept, and I think there's a seminar in Beaverton coming up in a month or two about this subject. But they would create these log fort areas and places where kids could dig and do the things that you kind of would prohibit in a regular park. And I'm wondering, has that been discussed? Because it seemed like a really cool idea that you could incorporate into some of these trails plans, or that undeveloped park area that we keep talking about.
What's that mean? Things you could do? Dig.
You mean if a kid was to go into a city park and build a log fort, I think that would cause him a ticket, or to get shovels and dig and play and do the things that kids want to do. I only read a brief description of it, but it sounded like a pretty cool idea.
Stimulate interactive play and
where in those
I saw a cool sticker for
those types of facilities where they'll actually put some fallen trees and cut some sharp pieces off and put logs out, and it's more like go ahead and just run around and jump on things, or get dirty or whatever, and it's not a developed site. So we haven't specifically spent much time talking about that, but it is something that is kind of out there in the parks and recreation profession. It's I don't know if I'd call it quite a trend, but it's definitely something that's kind of been talked about a little bit, but we haven't had any specific discussion about it here.
A good example of that is Merrillhurst Early Childhood Center over at the Barclay Building. That's how they encourage their little created an environment over there where they go out and they garden and they get dirty and they dig and they play in the water and they play with the dirt and they change their clothes 3 or 4 times a day. But that is kind of, they've created a plan for their playground that incorporates a lot of those elements.
Cool.
And you naturally have that in the southwest Kanema parks and the Waterboard Park, like I mentioned. There's lots of rocks and things you can really get physical with, and kids would. I know my son's going to absolutely enjoy rock hopping and jumping around, and when you're in your flatter areas, your areas that are a little more polished parks, they lack that. They have organized sports fields and not much else other than a swing, so it probably would be a good idea.
Anything else? Okay. Tree plantings in parks.
This that was a great discussion, and this should be a pretty quick one. This is just a informational piece for you to let you know, again, just kind of keeping you posted about some things that are going on. As you may or may not know, the last 2 years, this current budget year and then again in next budget year, it's being discussed. The Commission has had has supported an urban forestry initiative where some money in the city's budget is actually being specified to be used for tree plantings to make sure that we're keeping our urban forestry canopy, going forward, and because we, as part of the natural process of managing parks and trails and open spaces, is we lose a certain amount of trees either by disease or decay, or they become hazards, and we have to take a tree down every so often because it's going to fall over and hurt somebody or damage somebody's vehicles or whatever the case may be. So we've been. This is just kind of one of those things that we've been doing, and I just wanted to make sure that you were aware, and it's a positive thing. We have planted basically over the last year. This is probably a low estimate. It's just kind of a quick list that we put together with Larry Potter, who, by the way, is at a professional conference this week and is not here. But our Parks Department, we've planted about 50 or more trees over the last year, and just a couple of kind of a quick run through of a few of those sites. And some of these are smaller and some are bigger, and in between. We planted new trees at Chapin, Hillendale, Clackamas Park, Wesleyland Park, the cemetery. We planted a very significant tree in front of the Carnegie Center to try to replace one of the large elms that we lost a couple of years ago. Just this last week, we planted a new white oak near in front of the end of the Oregon Trail Center, kind of near Abernathy in Washington, a little bit further towards Home Depot. But there's a new tree. You actually kind of see the disturbed ground where that was put in. We put in a sizable, what would become a heritage tree, a large species that would eventually grow to become one of those very large canopy things. Coming up in the near future, we're going to be planting 14 more trees in that parking, what we call the overflow parking lot across from Clackamas Park, kind of right there down below McDonald's. There's sort of a gravelly area that we use, planting some more trees along Clackamas River Drive, and just a lot more sites planned. And then to go with this, one of the Commission's goals this year is that the city would like to become a Tree City USA city.
Oh, cool.
And there's some things that you do to get that certification, and we're in the process working. It's not just the Parks Department. We're working collaboratively with our Public Works and our Planning Department, and we are working towards getting that certification done, and there's kind of this formal process. And you have to show that you spend so much per capita on tree maintenance and tree plantings, and we exceed that threshold. Just a matter of getting certified. Then you put up a few of those signs around town that says you're a certified Tree City USA. And then around Arbor Day, we will be holding a tree planting ceremony. I think we're going to get some school kids involved and bring a few of the classrooms in and help us plant some new trees and parks. I think we're going to do that at Hillendale Park. We're going to put in like 22 new trees, and some of the school kids will get to help us, throw some of the dirt on the trees and put them in the hole and so forth. So we're doing some of that type of stuff, and I just simply wanted to make you aware of that. That's basically kind of an ongoing thing, and we are a tree-friendly city.
They create trees that fall on elderly people walking down the sidewalk.
No, I hope not. That little Portland reference there. Yeah. A few trees have fallen over the last week or two.
Yes. Bending.
Scott, is there any tie with that as far as preserving some of our old historic trees? Is there any movement in that sort of?
Well, that's just kind of a natural part of the process, but specifically the city has a heritage tree ordinance. Is that kind of what are you sort of getting at that a little bit? And okay.
Making sure that we're going to all of our schools and preserving some of the big oak tree that's in stuff.
So
I ate lunch under that tree when I was a kid, by the way.
Very cool. So just so you know, there's the city has a heritage tree ordinance whereby any citizen can nominate a tree that is kind of like that type of, it's supposed to be something that's grand like that you really want to protect, and that can be nominated by anybody. You do that there's a process through our planning department. You put an application in, and that has to go through some steps. So that exists, but you have to specifically nominate it, and it has to be approved as a designated heritage tree.
So that would impact that tree?
No, but, kind of in a roundabout way, because when you are applying for the Tree City designation, you have to show that you have some tree ordinances in place, and that was one of them that we would be saying, yeah, we've got some things in place like that. Yeah, so it all ties together. And that's it on that one.
To go as a part of that, how's the Carnegie? You had some diseased trees. We brought this up a year or two ago. Is everything going okay there?
We're still trying to deal with that. It's Dutch elm disease has been kind of taken over a lot of those trees, and basically it's just a constant monitoring.
Okay.
That's just basically we're going to continue to lose those trees over time.
Right. Hey, I've seen the plan. Everything's okay with that.
Does
as
it
far
spread
as
through the root system?
It does.
Yes.
Yep. It spreads through the roots, and once it's in, you can't really do a lot about it other than just monitor and kind of know that you got to watch for the trees as they start to fail and keep a close eye on them. Because when they fail, they basically rot from the inside out, and large pieces of those big grand elm trees can fall off, and they can do some serious damage and injury and things.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous monitoring situation, and it's likely that we're going to continue to lose some of those over time, but hopefully slower than faster. And we do have a replanting plan as we
lose them.
Yeah, as we lose more, even ahead of that, knowing that we're going to lose some, we kind of are doing some plantings that we've done already. Some of yeah.
Okay, just to check in. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to other general business, and I'm going to dive in and steal something Don said and Patrick alluded to, because I think it's worth more than just it kind of got tossed out there and we went on. And that has to do with that GPS, Google Earth, geocaching, getting more people into the park thing. I'm just sitting here thinking about a Parks Day on a Saturday when, there's, representative of PRAC at all of our major parks, and, we put a map, the GPS coordinates out, and, follow this trail, and kids get, fill in their little stickers on a piece of paper or whatever, and a prize at the end, or, ice cream from free pizza or whatever it is. I think there's a great opportunity, and there's so many people. I mean, everybody's got it all on their cell phones now to try to take advantage of that and get more people into our parks. I think it's something we should think about.
I think you need to look at it at the major parks. Everybody knows the major parks. Look at the smaller parks that people don't know.
People that lived here a while don't. My neighbors don't know half of the parks on the list. I have a map on the list. Yeah.
I know that's the problem, though,
Yeah.
is that the major parks, most of them know about,
Right.
you know, Chapin, Wesley Lynn, stuff like that, maybe Wesley Lynn will. But there's a lot of them on this that, you know, I've lived here, I was born here many years ago.
It's kind of like where the
I don't know half of them.
Right.
I didn't even know they were parks. So,
Yeah.
Definitely.
So maybe it isn't the major ones. Maybe it's the secondary ones that we need to.
Well, I think the major participation, Marty, in those parks, where they've scheduled athletic events and big events, people know where those parks are. But those that are more nature-oriented or small for picnics and outings, those are, I mean, I've had gone with locals, stumble into these things, and they're like, I've never seen these before. And they're, you know, breath's taken away by the beauty of it. So it is missing. How do we promote that? How do we get those people to those parks? If they knew they were there, they would probably visit them every weekend.
Here's just a quick idea. You know, I don't know how many times we've had the cleanup day at Clackamas Park, but maybe we should just start alternating the different starting locations of our cleanup day for Oregon City to the different parks,
Great idea, and it would highlight
and then just branch out from there.
and promote
I
them.
don't think that would change too much of the aspect of it. I mean, there needs to be some area to have the buffet.
It's important.
I can make that suggestion.
Yeah.
The Parks Department doesn't actually coordinate that event. Our code enforcement does. They're kind of in charge of the city clean.
Other hat.
Yeah, well, not anymore, actually.
Oh,
So
okay. I
that's
missed a meeting.
transferred. Yeah, that's under a different department now. But at any rate, I mean, it's a city event, and I can certainly throw that out there.
Yeah.
Logistically and all that stuff, I think Clackamas works really,
Yeah,
really well for a
yeah,
lot of reasons. Is probably why it's there, but that's not to say that it cannot move around.
It's a great idea.
But yeah.
I had a couple, and if I had heard you out, I wouldn't have contradicted you. I apologize. I didn't hear you out. I saw a sticker. Maybe everybody's seen it. One of the fascinating things when we moved here was the outdoor school. Never heard of that till we moved to Oregon. And I saw a sticker the other day that said "No child left inside," which I thought was pretty cool.
Nice.
If we could come up with something catchy like that. And the other thing I was thinking about is there are a couple GPS manufacturers out there who make a really inexpensive GPS, and I thought, man, if we could get one of them to sponsor such an event and have a starting point and have them go out and get these, get the people to recognize where the parks are. And you're going to need to probably have your family involved because it is a little bit of I don't know how many miles it would take to connect all those parks, but it is something I've thought about since we're deciding how do we get everybody to realize the pocket parks, and is it worthy of a ballot measure to get? And I don't think it is until the awareness comes out. How do we raise that awareness? And I'm not, I think the cleanup's a good idea, definitely, but how many years would it take for us to get the awareness out there?
It's just one idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's an event. I think it's actually kind of a national movement in parks. I think it's a lot like what you're talking about, Mike. I think it's called National Parking Day, where a city or a parks provider would designate some sites, and it's on a specific date. And I'll have to look into that a little bit. I don't remember when that occurs. I think it's in the summer. And it encourages people to go to some specific park sites where there are activities and volunteers or staff or both are at that park all day and doing exactly what you're talking, and even setting up kind of some temporary parks in little spaces where you create a little green space, maybe on Main Street in downtown. I know Portland's been pretty big in doing that. Some of that is staffing and your ability to do that. So National Parking Day is an event that maybe you could tie that idea into.
Mm-hmm.
Could probably look into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Anything else on new business or general business, I guess?
I'd like just to keep that idea on our next month's agenda so we keep remembering to work on that.
Okay. Scott, you got that note?
You got it.
Okay. Crack member reports.
Wesley Lynn, I went by the construction crew. They've done great jobs with a lot of our parks, and this is my last year, and I want you guys to always remember that the Oregon City High School construction crew does a lot of fabulous work.
Yeah, they do.
So always keep that in mind when there's things that can be done. Get them involved, because it gets credit to them and gives them knowledge. But get a chance. I don't know if you've been up there, but go up there and look at what they're doing and what they have done. It's pretty amazing.
It is.
When you start looking, I think you guys are interested in some of the stuff that they've done throughout the parks and stuff like that. Maybe give Scott an email and he can send you, like the bridge they did at Hillendale,
and that platform and
other stuff, the platform and stuff like that. So they've done quite a bit. So check into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Good point.
Good point, Marty.
I don't have anything to report other than I think it would be really interesting to do an event in the parks and link some of our after-school kids and get them out into the park when their parents pick them up, do field trips, have them end up in the park and maybe have that be a pickup. But I think there's some partnering that we could do to get people outside.
Excellent.
It would be really fun, actually. And we can help support the staff, too.
That's really good.
Great. Good deal. Don?
I should have done a general business real quick and just drop it out there. If you could search your archives in your mentally and come up with any of the things that PRAC has signed on to in the past, it would be nice to get a clearing of those, maybe, so we could maybe research those too. I often feel like I come to a meeting and sometimes say things that's been said, lots of times. So if there's any initiatives that this body's agreed to in the past, it'd be kind of cool to know what they are.
Like the River Trail thing?
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah. Okay, my report. I did go to 3 different meetings for, it was basically about bicycle tourism, trail connectivity. Seems to be the trail connectivity meeting tonight. And it was really exciting, actually. There's a lot of things going on with Westland and Oregon City. But more in a broader scope, Clackamas County is really interested in developing Clackamas County as a nationally recognized or internationally recognized area to go to do cycling. And so we had several meetings where they brainstormed and they went around the Clackamas County and got different input around the county. And I kind of just glance over some of this. Daphne West, if anybody knows her from Main Street, kind of helped me with my notes, so I got to give her some credit. Digital new cycling areas, and then talking about an event, an annual event. The first one's tentatively set for October 14th. They talk about marketing, signage, and routes for designating Clackamas Park or the end of the Oregon Trail as a departure point for cyclists who come to the area with cars. I really tried to push real hard to make this area be maybe the gateway to Clackamas County, and I'm pretty proud to say Oregon City's got some pretty good work done already. I think it's going to be hard to beat us, meaning across the river. They developed downtown locations for bike parking. They talked about working with Main Street and working with the businesses that are down there to become more receptive and educate them on about the possibilities and the opportunities. A lot of people don't like spandex and clipless shoes in their store or the smell, or people bringing their own lunch. And we talked about that maybe there was a designation for a business that would say we're bike friendly, and that cyclists would know you could go there and they already speak the lingo and they're not going to freak out about your spandex. They talked about work with the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee and local tourism to define priorities and short and long range goals, so we would dovetail with them. That was kind of the purpose of me being there. They were talking about event promoters for the Arch Bridge cycling event, to discuss other event possibilities for possibly a downtown event, much like they might do over on Mississippi. If anyone's seen that event, it's been out the last few years, where they actually do a Criterion bike race right on Mississippi. And that was controversial with the business owners. I think they managed it a little tough, but a little rough. But I think we could do something like that to help get us on the map. I don't know if anyone's aware, End of the Trail Oregon Interpretive Center happens to be a good stopping point where people come from downtown and they park there and get on their bikes and then ride out to Clackamas or Clackamas County. And I won't go into detail because we are running pretty late, but I'll just summarize by saying I was really excited. I really think there's a huge future for this area, the Portland metro area. I can't think of any other area that has the potential that Clackamas County does to bring all of that. But one of the reasons I moved here, Bicycle Magazine said 12 years ago, that Portland was the #1 destination for bicycle-based vacations. And I thought that was pretty neat. And I could see us being even bigger by working with Metro and what they already have established and carrying that plan forward. And it was pretty neat to see some of the reports that came back on the last meeting, because there were people who weren't even cyclists that really wanted to get involved now and make sure that their town is on the map for cycling in Clackamas County. So I'll leave it at that.
And just to tag on to that, the thing about the end of the trail being a good biking stopping point, there's an entity that is planning a Barlow Trail bike ride this summer that is going to be a major event, and they're going to use the end of the Oregon Trail as kind of a starting point. They're actually doing it backwards, kind of going up the hill between here and Government Camp. And there's this really cool thing. I don't know if they've ever done it before, but I've just recently heard about it. They had to make arrangements with us to use the site there and make sure that the facility was going to accommodate that. But that's a pretty big deal. It's going to happen.
It is, actually, and I should have brought the poster, but it's proudly magnetic to my fridge at the house.
So you know all about that. Good.
Okay.
And for those of you who've heard the reports from the Oregon City Pioneer Center, in the past they use spring break for spring cleaning, major repairs and maintenance. And so that's what they're going to do. They're going to be shut down this next week. They're going to be getting a new freezer motor because the other one was 33 years old and used heavily. Refinishing the ballroom floor and the carpet cleaning. I believe there's an outside company that's going to do that. But most of this work is by staff. New stalls in the women's restroom, mirrors replaced in both bathrooms, new lighting in the front walkway area, the junk in the basement, which is accumulated, is going to be cleaned out and donated to a charity. The buses will be cleaned and serviced, and paint touch-up throughout the facility. And if there's time, planting the garden. So they will be busy.
Not the garden in the snow.
Yes. I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Patrick.
A couple Sundays ago, I got invited to go to a very organic neighborhood meeting. Al Gardening and Neighbor Walk By and invited me, and Commissioner Roth showed up, and I got to meet the city manager, David Frazier, long A. And we talked about local things just within our McLaughlin neighborhood, and then kind of branched out and talked, big picture of Oregon City with the paper mill and the floodplain at the Cove. And so it was fascinating to be a part of an organic neighborhood invite of a dozen people. It felt really good. You didn't have to follow it was around coffee and potluck, and I have never been to a neighborhood natural meeting like that before, and it felt wonderful. And I wonder if the meetings are popping up around different neighborhoods around Oregon City. So it was great, and Roth and Frazier were just amazing. Especially when I found out all the stuff that Mr. Frazier does. I mean, he does a lot, just like you guys. So it's pretty. It was a pretty interesting experience. So.
To say, first of all, I'm just amazed at all of the things that the city's involved with in this committee. It's going to take a while to get up to speed, so I'll keep asking stupid questions and getting good answers. I would like to say that I'm not sure of the name of the Oregon City Bulletin that comes out, the
Trail News.
Trail News. I found that to be very helpful. It had a good definition, explanation of all the parks. And I'm not sure if that's each issue or if that was a special issue, but at least the last one I thought was excellent. So whoever's responsible for that, I want to pass that on. And I didn't know, Denise, that was in your bailiwick, but good job.
We've got lots of help.
Credit to Denise for that. We do put the parks map and info in every edition.
For those that don't have the right app, that was very helpful. So I was thinking last time, and I'm not sure if you've done this before, but it would be very helpful for me and maybe others, maybe a half-day field trip to all these various parks and to just walk on the dirt and have a look around and get a better feel for what's all involved here. I did take time to go down to the RV park and took a look around, and it just seems to me there's just vast potential there. It just looks like a terrific spot to nurture and grow, and seemed like a natural for me. Just a quick reminder, Scott, I would like a copy of that master plan.
I'll grab that right when we're done here.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the last item, I was thinking of Mr. McGowan and the beach cleanup. What's his first name, by the way? Famous Oregonian that has that.
Yeah, solved.
Jack McGowan,
Jack
I think.
McGowan, yeah.
And how that has taken off, and it's just a major event every year. And as we were talking about the cleanup of the parks, maybe something like that could get going here. So those are my thoughts tonight. But
We actually
Thank
do
you.
some solve cleanups along our riversides. So those are out in our.
I didn't hear you, Denise.
We do some solve projects on the riversides. So those are coordinated efforts that come out.
It's in April. It's actually, I think it's in the Trail News, isn't it? Or did that not get in there? Well, anyway, if you're interested in that specifically, and just to let you know that we're doing it, but if you specifically want to be involved or something, we have an annual Oregon City Cleanup Day. It happens on a Saturday every year in April, and it's a very organized effort with some specific sites, and it is tied into the Solve effort. It's kind of connected to that organization, but it's our own local take on that. We identify a few sites where we need to do some specific projects or enhancements or cleanups. We did some last year's project. We did at Singer Falls as part of the cleanup day. We did some debris clearing and put some mulch and new plantings in. So yeah, we do that.
I've only lived here for 40 years, so I guess that got by me.
Well, sometimes sometimes the word just doesn't get out as well as you want it. So
I'll be looking for that.
Brian.
Could I also follow up? When we did a tour when I first started, we jumped in a van, toured around some of the parks, and we have a lot of new members now. Is there something on?
I think we talked
foreseeable
about
future?
just recently at a meeting. We talked about it's probably time to do another one of the park tours. We did that 2 years ago. I'm thinking maybe pardon?
Catered.
Yes, actually we did. Got to get that meal in.
Yeah.
Well, what we did was
We had a meal.
we did some box lunch
Chips.
kind of things.
They were good.
Because we took you hostage starting right at dinner time and kept you for until it got dark. And I would love to do that again
Yeah,
if you're
I think we
open to
should.
that. We did. I think probably the best month to do that would be July. If you'd be willing to take your July meeting and make it a road meeting, that way we're not asking you to commit to another night unless you'd wish to commit that in addition to your regular meeting. But what we'll do is take probably the July meeting and make it a park tour night, and we'll get a van and we'll just pick some sites. We'll work with you to identify the sites that you want to go see specifically, and we'll get out there and get to as many parks as we can, and we'll have box dinners
sounds
again on the
good.
run.
Sandwich. It must have been a good sandwich because I remember
You
the
do
sandwich.
remember that? Yeah,
That's the thing I remember too.
we'll do our best to make that meal memorable.
Okay.
It's probably just tasted good because it was free.
That always helps.
What park is this? What park? Oh, okay. Okay, so here's my report. My first comment is it's great to see 9 people at this meeting, and
No kidding.
and so yes, this is a very popular committee. So
Great to see you at this meeting.
Thank you very much. So everybody out there in TV land, you know, this is a great committee to be on. So I know there's a waiting list now that is developed. But I see, and I also see, you know, somebody said there was a lot of potential, and one of the topics we were talking about, there's a lot of potential right here on this committee, okay? This is like the most stacked this committee has ever been, you know? And that's to say nothing about the previous people that were on the committee either. It's just that, I don't know, maybe as, you know, Bob's becoming aware, maybe it's because I'm becoming more aware of the issues and everything and just feeling more comfortable. But I think we've got a great group of people here on this committee. So I think we are definitely going to be going places and getting things done. The second thing I'd like to say is I'd like to, and I've done this before, but I'd like to make a report on the staff at the Oregon City Pool on the 10th and 11th of March. Excuse me. Yeah. 10th and 11th of March, we had a swimming meet, which, you know, we had over 200, and the Oregon City swimming team had over 200, I think it was 250 swimmers coming from all over the area. It was a 2-day meet, so we brought, you know, Chamber of Commerce likes to do figures about revenue, how many people come in, 2-day meet, that type of thing. But that's kind of beside the point, although that is a point in itself. The staff at the Oregon City Pool never ceases to amaze me. You know, I look at them as young people because I'm older now, but they always represent the city of Oregon City very well, and they are professional. They're there to help us set up on Friday p.m. They're there on Saturday and Sunday to guard and to clean up and everything else, and I have nothing bad to say about them. They always do a good job, and I just wanted to let you guys know that and staff know that as well.
Thank you very
so
much.
Hats off to those guys.
Appreciate that. We'll
Yeah.
definitely be passing that along to the leadership and the staff at the pool. So thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, move on to staff reports.
All right, let's see if we can go very quickly here. I just sent out an email blast to you today and kind of did a save the date. You may or may not have seen that yet. That our Kanema Park official celebration day will be Thursday, June 14th at 5 o'clock in the evening. Would love to have every one of you there if you can make it. There will be some food there and some.
Brian will be there.
There will be food and activities and some cool things going on. Some tours by Metro of the Metro Natural area. The Grand Ronde Tribe is going to be involved with some tribal music and dance.
Date and time one more time.
June 14th, 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'll be doing the mayor will make some, you know, a little speech, and there'll be some other folks saying some words, and we'll cut a ribbon and call the park officially open, even though actually the park is going to be open before then, like in the next few weeks, but this is the official date. Ermatinger House, we continue to move along in our project with we've got the architect on board doing architectural work and engineering work and analysis, and that just continues forward. We're waiting to hear some an official notice, but it looks very promising at this point. We put in a grant application with the county for a community development block grant, which comes from some federal funds passed down through counties and then to the local communities. Looks like there's a pretty good chance that we're going to get about $140,000 from that to add to our tally, where we're trying to get to a figure that we can do the project to fully renovate the house and preserve it. So we're looking pretty good there. The RV park, I just want to let you know we have the veterans fee waiver policy. We talked about that at the last meeting. You were supportive of bringing that back and moving forward. Didn't have enough time to spend on that particular item, but I'm hoping to bring that back to you at your next meeting, where we'll have a draft policy or some draft language that you can help us kind of put together and make sure that we're all good with that before we move it up the ladder. And then the master plan, we already talked about that during your goal setting, so you know what's going on there. And you want to talk about anything recreation or otherwise, Denise?
Really short. The RV park is currently closed due to high water.
Thank you.
We'll put a notice back out there as soon as that opens up. Grimm, the TV series, filmed at Clackamas Park last Friday, Saturday. So on the future Grimm episodes, watch for Clackamas Park. They filmed under the 99 Bridge. So if you recognize one of those green bridges and some water, that's probably us. They did do some mitigation for the wear and tear, and so we got 2 10-foot Deodorus cedars, which will help kind of mitigate some of the trees that we're losing down in Clackamas Park. Pioneer Center March for Meals is wrapping up. So if you're still out there and you see our March for Meals buckets at the stores or at the banks, please feel free to contribute. That really does go a long ways for us. And that goes to our Meals on Wheels program. We have spring break camps that are going through our rec program and our aquatic program. So the first week, I think, is full, but I think we have some slots for the second week. So if you have kiddos or know people who have kiddos, we like kiddos at our programs. And then Rochelle Parsh has been working on our Concerts in the Park sponsorships, and she has solidified about $12,000 worth of sponsorships for Concerts in the Park. So ahead of our schedule and revenues for that.
Great.
And I think, just because we're being brief, I will send each of you guys the monthly reports. So the Parks, Pioneer Center, and the Recreation and Pool reports. I'll send those. That tends to be some big meaty stuff that I'll just send to you guys, as well as the map. And what else was I going to send you guys? Annual Earth Day event, April 21st.
Can I ask?
The city cleanup.
Cleanup Day,
Yeah.
Saturday, April
Clackamas Park.
21st.
Oh, April 21st.
With the
Were there plans for movies in the park at all this summer?
We are doing movies in the park. Those will all be in the next Trail News.
Okay.
The next Trail News will come out about mid-May.
Is it one specific park, or is it going to rotate?
It's at Wesley Lynn Park
It's at
for
Wesley.
right now.
Okay.
So there'll be 4 right now. We're projecting 4. We are doing some funding mechanisms to see if we can get those funded.
And
but
you
I
had
think we're going to do 4.
that going last summer?
Yes.
Yes.
We
And
did
was it a
2
big
last
draw?
summer.
I never.
The first one wasn't as, I don't think the word was out as much, or
Right.
people didn't see the advertising, but word of mouth really hit, and the second one boomed.
Sure. Right.
I think it's going to really take off. I think the word's kind of out.
Yeah, it's a big hit in Portland. They love them.
It was great.
Doesn't-
I went to both of them last year, and it was just a great, fun atmosphere.
doesn't VCT do that as well? Have we thought about partnering with them potentially?
BCD does it, but I don't know.
They do their own
special
yeah,
event.
We're not partners with them on that one, but
Yeah.
we do hit them up as much as we can.
Yeah.
Try to get
They're a great organization.
Be the pretty cool fun.
Thank you.
That's it. Anything else from anybody?
Real quick, can we invite Bob to be, if you would like, to be on the RV park committee with me or a representative of? If you'd like. Sure.
That'd be awesome.
Of course.
Yeah.
We'll,
Okay. Done.
You'll just call me when something's
we'll
up,
get an
or-
email,
Oh.
and I have the app, so I'll call you.
You have the app?
We got an app.
Well,
Moving forward.
anything else?
You got a fixed line?
Next meeting date.
Thank you, everybody. I think this was a great meeting tonight. I'm sorry that we went over. We were short last time, so it's okay. I spent I spent up some of my saved up minutes from last time. Yeah, that's right. So our next meeting is April 26th. Thank you again. That was a great meeting, and don't forget, it's Carmageddon, so don't go down the hill.
Tomorrow.
Started an
No,
hour
already
ago.
Closed an
on
hour
now.
ago.
Yeah, well,
Now, when is it
tomorrow.
up again?
Tuesday
Yeah.
morning.
Tuesday.
And my wife is probably sitting in it right now, trying to get home. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Well done, everyone.
Hey, nice job.